Hello everyone! Today we're going to be creating these slab ocean cylinders. So a slab is a flat sheet of clay, and I'm using my ruler and my clay cutting tool to create a long, skinny rectangle shape. Just trying to get the biggest shape I can get out of this piece of clay. You will want to use a ruler for those longer edges just to make sure, like you can see this one here, the top is a little uneven. And so by using the ruler, I can just kind of get that top trimmed off. Now you're going to be decorating this slab using additive and subtractive methods. So additives, whenever we attach things, here you can see I'm checking my cylinder. That's about what size it's going to be. Subtractive is by like cutting in or carving the clay. And we're creating an ocean scene. So what I would do right away is I would put a base or a sandy bottom to your clay piece. If you don't want to include sand on the bottom, that is totally fine. But it's just kind of a nice way to help use up some of the space. And so I have a piece cut out here. You can see I added some curves to it. Whenever we are attaching clay to clay, we have to remember our techniques. The clay is wet, so it feels sticky right now. But once it's dry, it won't stay attached. So we need to use that slip and score technique. So I am scratching up the clay, both pieces of clay, like both sides of the attachment. This is going to help knit that clay together. And using the slip, which is the watered down clay, that acts as like a glue. So you can line it up, press it into place. And remember, with our clay, whatever looks like a rough edge is going to dry and fire as a sharp edge. And we really don't want sharp edges in our pottery. These are things that we're holding and touching in our hand. So you always want to knock down your edges using a little wet fingertip. And when you're making slabs, it picks up the texture from the canvas in the slab roller. Now, you might like that texture, like for sand, it might work really good, but maybe later on you want to change up the texture. You can just smooth over the clay with a little wet fingertip, or you can press designs in. When working with a slab, it's important that you don't stretch or change the original rectangle shape. We are just attaching and like adding details onto that. So I'm going to speed through a few of my details. That way you can kind of see what I'm working on here. The first detail I'm adding is I rolled out coils, and I'm going to attach some clumps of coiled clay together to create things that look like sea anemones or coral or even like seaweed. I ended up adding a few other things to the sand, and then I wanted to work on my water texture. Now you want to be careful not to push too hard because, like I said, you don't want to change the shape of the slab, but you can change the texture of it. Using some water and finger pressure, I made some waves. Here's a clip of some other things that I added. So just by making some simple fish shapes, by carving them out of some extra pieces of my slab, you could create a school of fish by creating multiples of the same type of shape, and those could take up a space in your ocean. You can see that I ended up adding my school of fish as well as a sea turtle. Those are all of our additive techniques, like we're adding clay on. Now I'm doing some texture design by pressing in a loop tool just to kind of create some other sea life in there. And we had talked at the beginning about you can carve things out. That would be that subtractive method we had talked about. So for instance, if I wanted to carve out part of my turtle's design, that would be a safe spot to do it because there's already layers built up in there. Now that you're done designing your slab, we're going to get a new slab and start forming that cylinder. I will tell you my clay was extremely wet. I'm hoping yours will be drier as you are doing this project because this was very difficult. So you're going to try to form and shape your cylinder the best you can. Start cutting away some of the extra clay, and you can see my cylinder is not a very good cylinder right now. It's very wonky, but I am just trying to get a rounded shape for the base of my cylinder. And once I've carved away some of the extra clay, then you can see that it's not quite a circle. So I'm going to trim off any of those sharp corners to make it more round and more circular. We do need to scratch and attach both that circle and the bottom of our slab, as well as the edge of the slab. So remember, wherever you're having clay touch clay and you're trying to make a connection, we need to take our time and do the work. So I'm going to scratch that. I'll scratch up the other things, and in a minute here I can join it. Don't forget to add slip as you go. Now, like we talked about, my piece is very wet, so hopefully yours will be stronger because your clay will be a little bit drier. But you're going to try to match up the edges, match up that seal, like the split in the cylinder. And notice I'm rolling out a coil. That coil gets scratched and attached to the inside where that seam is. And so I use a plastic tool and some slip just to try to smooth that out. And I also want to check on the outside because you want to try to get rid of the gap. Notice it's going to maybe interfere with some of your decorations, so you will have some final touches. I'm stuffing my cylinder with some paper towel. That's going to make it so much easier to work with. You can then trim off any extra clay from the base that's sticking off. And notice you have to go back and fix those edges. Everything's going to be a little rough, but just handle it really carefully. Like notice here, I'm having to push parts of my turtle back together again. That's all normal. It's okay. So just take your time and be really patient. As always, ask for help when you get to this part. When you're finishing up any project, just try to go over anything that looks rough or out of place, because remember, the next time you see it, it's dry. It might even be fired in the kiln, and you won't be able to make any changes. So if you want to keep working on it, you have to let me know so that you have time next class. When you're done for the day, make sure your name is written very clean and clear on the bottom of your cylinder, and clean up everything